Dust motes, like tiny angels, float, frolicking in beams of sun, which dance on whiskers, twitching, never still. The huntress dreams upon her windowsill. She snoozed in the soft morning light. A tangle of paws, ears, whiskers, and tail tucked together, curled up on her tiny blue recamier in the front window of his cottage. He had found the piece of velvet upholstered doll's furniture at a local boot fair for only £2. It just fit on the ledge of the bay window, which faced east towards the morning sun, and he could imagine the cat he just adopted sleeping luxuriously upon it, like a queen in her castle. The little grey tabby had arrived without invitation or introduction. Less than a month after he moved to Tinnywinkland Cottage, she'd appeared on his doorstep, a bedraggled lump of fur, crouched on the welcome mat, first encountered at the end of his morning walk. "What's this?" the old man thought, when he spied the unknown object at his front door. He stopped at the end of the path and squinted into a fine drizzle misting from the leaden sky. Was it a rat? Many fat ones with their beady black eyes and slick coats inhabited stone walls and other ruins in the area. Could it be a hedgehog? No. The thing was too large and not spiny enough. Then he spotted a pair of pointy ears as its head turned his way. A long tail sprang up. He smiled in recognition of the creature's true identity. It was a small, very damp cat, evidently pleased to see him. "Hello, Puss. Are you lost?" The cat replied by rising up and arching its back in a stretch. She stayed on the doormat, pacing back and forth, as the old man slowly approached, careful not to scare her away. He could hear purring from halfway up the path. "My, you're a friendly one. I bet you're hungry, too." By the time he reached the doorway and turned the key in the lock, she was at his feet, rubbing her cheeks on his pant cuffs, purring ever louder. "Do you smell the sea, little one? I've been to the beach looking for treasure," he chuckled. They were the first words he'd spoken in many days. No one lived with the old man, and he received few visitors. A hermit had no use for conversation. He lived a solitary life since moving to the cottage at summer's end. The door was open just wide enough for him to slip inside, and he crouched down to pet the cat's head while preventing her from following him. She let out a meow as the door closed on her expectant face. The cottage's interior was dimly lit. Vertical blinds drawn across the main window allowed a little of the November morning's glow to permeate. He dropped his keys into a dish on the side table and flicked on a lamp. Its multicolored glass shade tempered the bleakness, seemed to warm his small space. One long room with a tiny bathroom at the rear. Perhaps a cup of tea would help him decide what to do about the cat. Was she someone's pet? It was when the kettle had boiled, and he heard her plaintive meow, meow on the other side of the cottage door, that the solution revealed itself. And he hadn't regretted her adoption of him ever since. There came a knock at the door, rat-a-tat-tat, and being that hour on a weekday morning, the visitor could only be Mr. Post of Her Majesty's Royal Mail. The old man received no other callers, apart from tourists who'd lost their way to the beach. But if the weather was fair and the postman was making good time, and he had a letter from Australia for the old man, Mr. Post would see to it that his delivery arrived into the recipient's hands. The old man was unsure of the postman's real name. He had a very bad memory for names, but he knew Mr. Post collected large, colorful stamps from faraway lands. And while they chatted amicably at the doorway, the old man would carefully tear the stamps from the envelope to give to his faithful visitor before he continued his route. "My great-uncle ran away to Australia," the postman once confided, "and me mam said he ended up in Alice Springs, married to an Oriental dancer who could shoot ping-pong balls across the room from a most extraordinary part of her anatomy." "Are you sure she wasn't pulling your leg? That sounds like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert," the old man chuckled. "No, no," Mr. Post retorted. "Ma'am said great-uncle actually inspired the movie. He was a right daft bugger, he was." With the day's mail safely in hand, it was time to feed the cat. Her christening had proven to be problematic, as every name he'd attempted to bestow upon her had resolutely fallen on deaf ears, no matter how often repeated. But she always popped a sleepy eye open when he said cat. So it was eventually decided to call her nothing but Cat, or the Cat. Of course, a name was unnecessary at mealtime. No matter how soundly she appeared to sleep, the slightest rattle of a cutlery drawer, or opening of the larder, or even just his thought of feeding her, would flush the cat from her sunny window or dark hiding place in a skittering dance to the kitchen. She wasn't finicky. Dry kibble or any moist food was all gratefully gobbled in astonishing quantities and with great gusto. He laughed at the thought of a much larger feline, a lion or tiger perhaps, somehow squeezed into her diminutive frame, much bigger on the inside than out, like a furry, purring TARDIS. "Are you ready for second breakfast, Cat?" he smiled. First breakfast always occurred shortly after she woke him every morning with a gentle nip on the nose. "How about seafood? The minced whitefish looks very tasty today." It was when his hand began to open the cutlery drawer that a chill ran down the old man's spine. Silence. No thundering applause or meow in anticipation of another full tummy. He listened for a moment longer before turning to realize that she was gone.